Hello everyone. Today is December 2nd of 2020. I am Josie Gonzales. I am the chair of the December 2nd Memorial Committee. Coming to you today in a moment of recognition of what has happened in this county. A moment in which we are choosing to reflect how all of this came about. As a result of the terrorist attack that took place on December 2nd of 2015, the San Bernardino County Board of Supervisors elected to create a memorial committee made up of family members, of San Bernardino County family employees, and administrative staff, that together we might be able to begin to piece and rebuild what had been torn apart in the form of a memorial. I was selected to be the chair of said committee. I am also San Bernardino County Supervisor for the 5th District. The process of recognizing the responsibility that we had and working to bring the individuals, family members whose loved ones had died, been injured, including those first responders who ultimately saw the tragedy and the trauma that was taking place, was not easy. It took time, it took effort, and it took a great deal of understanding how difficult it was for everyone to begin the process of discussing what would ultimately be the ideal way to remember those that were lost, those that were injured, and those that responded and lived to have the tragedy played out time after time. Recognizing this responsibility and making it happen were two completely different things. And we were able to do this by holding meetings that were highly confidential, that allowed every member to have, through their autonomy, moments to weep, moments of sorrow, moments to reflect, moments to contribute, and ultimately work the pain of the moment through a long-term effort, which brings us to today in the form of the announcement that we are on the brink of bringing forward the December 2nd Memorial. After much consideration, in July of 2018, the committee began to accept submittals of interest from worldwide artists, local artists, individuals whom we really were honored to have their interest and their willingness to come and speak to us and be able to garner the attention, the commitment, and the dedication that it was going to take to build the memorial. Thereby, through a process of interviews and the submittal of maquettes, the committee was able to select finalists from the very many talented artists that responded, and ultimately, after a number of challenges, as I'm sure you all are aware that happens in any project that is worth working through, we were able to identify Walter Hood as the artist of choice. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce world-renowned landscape architect artist and a 2019 MacArthur Fellow, Mr. Walter Hood.
It's our pleasure to be here today to basically have a groundbreaking for the San Bernardino December 2nd Memorial. We're really excited to be working on what we think is a very important project for the county. We decided to go after the project because our work is pretty much throughout the U.S. in the cultural landscape. And we recognize that part of this cultural landscape is the violence that is actually partaking our public realm, the loss of life from city to city, and how do we actually create places to commemorate, but also to remember and not to forget. Therefore, we came up with a project that's entitled The Curtain of Courage. We were inspired by the amazing outpouring, but the compassion of the people of San Bernardino, and more importantly, how the community came together on one day. On one day, the entire community came together to support. I was familiar with the attack only through television and what I had read in the papers. And as an art project, of course, we work in a lot of commemorative projects. And after doing the research, what was really powerful was, one, the regrettable loss of life, but how a community came to the aid of those who lost their lives. And we were really taken by how the entire county, right, acted, and they acted in unison. And that was something that, really inspired us to kind of think about how can we commemorate an event, yes, was tragic on one end, but on the other end, it took a community, right, to come together to actually face that adversity. Again, coming back to the Curtain of Courage, the environment we're trying to create is a place in which people will experience every day, but also a place for ritual. There will be 14 alcoves that will be created through this kind of scrim material that tends to enclose for each victim and their family. People can go and find a place of solace. But also we understand that the public workers will be passerby daily to this space. And so the space has to be uplifting. We didn't want the space to be of sorrow. We want it to be of light. We want it to be of remembrance. We're working with the families and the committee to make sure that each alcove, each piece will have an idiosyncratic, personal element that the family can remember. We think this is really important because on one hand, we're making a public space, but on the other side, we're trying to create something that's highly personal, and will never allow an event like this to actually happen again. Well, the memorial has gone through a lot of iterations, but it's always been this idea of being something light, something that was much more spiritual. And I think of light as a quality that evokes a lot of different meanings. And we didn't want something heavy, something to always be a downer. And this idea of a curtain of courage, we thought of this idea of wrapping, right, space. And knowing Southern California and the light quality there, we really wanted to use the natural environment, but also the landscape, particularly the vistas, to begin to incorporate and talk about place, but also talk about event. And so thinking about the 14 victims, that then became the numerical sort of cadence in which we wanted to sort of create this sculpture. And in the end, what we have are these, what we call 14 alcoves, right, that imbue light and a kind of physicality, right? A physicality for a small group of people, right, to come together. But if all 14 are filled, you now have a larger community. And so what we're looking for, right, is once the space is in place, is designed, that it will actually have meaning, not from me, but by the people who experience it. And it's been interesting having meetings with the committee because at every meeting, someone talks about the sun rising and the sun setting. So we think, this is a powerful gesture. And so these are the kinds of environments we look for when we're designing either sculpture or making places, is how do you build on what's there, right? And incorporate that so that in the future, it can come along with the piece. It doesn't stay fallow, but it actually gets enriched through this piece. And again, if we think about the curtain of courage, it's to the cause, even though individuals are part of that. And so the memorial needs to sort of say, we don't want this to happen again, versus just remembering people. We're trying to tie this back to the event. And finally, in closing, we'd like to thank the Memorial Committee for our selection. And most of all, we'd like to thank Supervisor Josie Gonzales for her amazing leadership and commitment to this project. Thank you.
It has been my distinct privilege and honor to have been involved with the December 2nd Memorial Committee from its inception. I have been at every meeting and participated in every painful step of the journey that ultimately leads us to today. Losing our county employees, people that I knew, many people that I saw on a daily basis, is very painful. And I can honestly tell you that I don't know how the families were able to put the pieces of their lives back together. But they have. And it is a testimony to the resilience and the strength that we as human beings can demonstrate in dire moments of pain. I have nothing but admiration for those first responders who selflessly ran to aid those in need, those that were shot, those that were dying, those that had died. Courage. Courage is truly a beautiful word, but when it is demonstrated, it goes beyond anything that is tangible. And as we look today at the memorial and the name Curtain of Courage, it ultimately weaves all of us together in a safety net, in a moment when we know that we can rely upon those around us who are trained, who are fearless, and who are dedicated to keep us safe to do just that. At the end of these 5 years, I can tell you that it is an extremely proud moment for me to have been intricately involved, to have gotten to know the memorial committee members, to have gotten to know the families of the loved ones who died, and most of all, to be able to deliver to you all a little piece of history, a little bit of the tale of what happened on December 2nd of 2015 in the form of a curtain of courage that will shield and will beg to remember that we all never forget those we lost, those who survived, and those who protected us. And now I will ask each of you to join me in a moment of remembrance.